Second white coat. Subscribe and like. Let's learn medicine together.
All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are putting on our detective hats to solve a really fascinating medical mystery. And it all starts with just one single clue. So, picture this, a newborn baby, and its arm is stiff, held really tight against its body. Now, this isn't just, a random thing. It's a huge clue. So, what does it mean? Is it an injury from birth, or is the problem coming from somewhere else entirely, like the brain? Let's dive in and start our investigation.
Okay, so the first and most obvious suspect, right? It's got to be an injury to the nerves in the arm itself. That's the logical place to start. So let's check it out.
So this first suspect has a name, a brachial plexus injury. Think of the brachial plexus as this super important highway of nerves that runs from the neck all the way down into the arm. Now, during a really tough delivery, if the baby's shoulder gets stuck, that nerve highway can get stretched, or even worse, torn. It's pretty delicate.
And what happens when those nerves are damaged? Well, the electrical signals from the brain just can't get through to the muscles. They can't tell them what to do. So without those signals, the arm goes weak and floppy. And that's the key word here, floppy. It's a lack of muscle tone, not too much of it. And boom, right there we have our first massive clue. Our baby's symptoms? They're the exact opposite of what you'd see with this kind of nerve injury. The arm isn't floppy, it's stiff. The reflexes aren't gone, they're way too strong. This is a total contradiction, so it's pretty clear we're looking in the wrong place.
All right, so if the problem isn't in the arm's wiring, where do we look next? Well, we have to go to the command center, the brain. Let's head up the chain and start ruling out some other conditions.
First on our list is something called diffuse cerebral atrophy. And the key word here is diffuse. This isn't about damage to one little spot. We're talking about a widespread problem where the entire brain might be smaller or damaged. So you can imagine if the whole brain is affected, the symptoms are going to be widespread too, right? You'd expect to see problems with the whole body, affecting both the left and the right sides. And this usually comes along with some pretty severe developmental delays. And that right there is our next big clue. Our baby's stiffness is only on one side of the body. It's what we call a unilateral issue. So a big, widespread, whole brain problem like this one, it just doesn't fit the facts. We can safely rule this one out. Next. Okay, next up, let's look at hollow prosencephaly. Now this is a very serious condition that happens way back early in pregnancy. It's when the brain, it just doesn't divide into two separate halves the way it's supposed to. Because this is such a fundamental issue with the brain's basic blueprint, the effects are, they're profound, and they typically affect both sides of the body. But here's a really key diagnostic sign. You can often see it in the baby's facial features. Things like a cleft lip or eyes that are unusually close together can be a giveaway. But our baby's face is normal, so when you combine that with the fact that the stiffness is only on one side, we can confidently cross this one off our list too. Moving on. Okay, our next potential culprit is something called mesial temporal sclerosis. That's a fancy way of saying there's scarring in a very specific part of the brain, the temporal lobe. And this part of the brain is a major player when it comes to memory, and it's also a common source of seizures. But what's really important here is what this condition doesn't do. The temporal lobe, that's not the brain's motor control center, not at all. So, while you might see serious issues like seizures, you're not going to see muscle stiffness or what doctors call spasticity. It's just not what this part of the brain does. So you see, the symptoms just don't line up with the job of that brain area. Our baby's problem is all about motor control and muscle stiffness, not seizures or memory. The location of the problem just doesn't fit the crime. So we can clear another suspect from our list.
Phew, okay. Let's recap. We've looked at a nerve injury in 3 totally different brain conditions, and we've ruled every single one of them out. So now it's time to lay out all the evidence we've gathered and see what it's telling us. Let's connect the dots.
When you put all the evidence side by side like this, the answer just jumps right out at you. Look at that. Every single condition we looked at, it misses the mark on at least one key symptom. But that last row, the one for our baby, it's a perfect match. Stiff arm? Check. Increased reflexes? Check. Problem on one side? Yep. Normal face? You got it. It all fits perfectly.
That last row, that's our smoking gun. The pattern of evidence is pointing us to one and only one specific diagnosis. And really, it all boils down to this one simple but incredibly powerful rule of thumb.
Floppy means it's a nerve problem. Stiff means it's a brain problem. See, a floppy limb means the signal just isn't getting to the muscle in the first place. But a stiff or spastic limb, that tells you the problem is higher up, in the brain's central command. The brain is supposed to send signals to both start and stop muscle movement. But when that part of the brain is damaged, those stop signals get lost. So the muscle just stays tight, and that's the stiffness we're seeing.
And that brings us to our final answer. The one-sided stiffness points directly to an injury in the brain's motor cortex. This is something that often happens around the time of birth, especially with premature babies. And this specific pattern of symptoms, well, that defines the diagnosis of cerebral palsy.
But getting the right diagnosis, that's not the end of the story. In fact, it's really just the beginning. It's the absolutely essential first step. Why? Because now doctors and the family can understand what to expect. They can create a plan for therapy, for support, for everything that comes next. So the real takeaway here isn't just a name for a condition. It's that a clear diagnosis is the roadmap for the future.